What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and at San Diego Comic-Con that happened over the weekend, we obviously got some major reveals when it comes to Phase 5 and Phase 6, but maybe something you don't know is that they actually gave us trailers and footage for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, unfortunately, these trailers were not shown to the public because they were not completely finished. In fact, James Gunn even replied to people on Twitter that wanted to see the trailer, stating that the visual effects just were not done for the trailer yet, so they didn't want to show it to the entire world. Which is completely understandable because when the trailer for She-Hulk first came out, people tore that thing apart over the visual effects. But the great news is that the trailer is done. They just have to polish it up a little bit, which means we should be getting it relatively soon. Of course, the Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer is going to come beforehand, where we'll get our first look at Kang the Conqueror, but in the meantime, we have a full description of what they showed for the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 trailer, and we're going to go over all the details and break it down. Now, I'll go over two different accounts of trailer descriptions. One has a little bit of info, but the other is pretty detailed. So, let's go over both. The first one comes from Gizmodo, and here's their description of the Guardians 3 trailer. They say, by the time of the third movie, the Ravengers are now being led by Gamora, who we see having a fun, banter-laden reunion with Peter Quill after their complicated relationship troubles in Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, as Peter tries to get Gamora to remember him. In the new footage screened to fans, set of course to Flaming Lips' Do You Realize, of course James Gunn always picks great music, we see a glimpse of a young baby Rocket Raccoon in flashbacks, which will play a major role in Guardians Volume 3, as we explore his origins as the test subject of a cruel experimentation on the planet Half-World. Also featured in the footage was Cosmo, the psychic Russian dog, and in the comics, security chief of the space station Nowhere, played by Borat's Maria Bakalova. And she actually came out with the Guardians cast at the Hall H panel, and they officially did announce this. So that's really exciting. Cosmo is going to be a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy. But let's continue on with what they saw during the trailer. They say, plus an all-gold, all-dazzling glimpse at Adam Warlock, played by Will Poulter, and a glimpse of the High Evolutionary, a powerful being who now, thanks to the MCU, is actually the person who transformed the Scarlet Witch and her brother Quicksilver into super-powered beings, leading them to believe that they were the mutant children of Magneto in the comics. Now, this did happen in the comics. The High Evolutionary is actually the person who experimented on Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, and what's interesting is that he actually experimented on them at Wundagore Mountain, and we saw Wundagore Mountain in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So I'm guessing that there is still somewhat of a connection there. Now, at one point in time, there was a comic storyline that said Magneto was indeed the biological father of the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. However, the comics would go on to eventually change this again. So as far as what story they're going to show in the MCU, I'm really hoping that Magneto is the true biological father of the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Back to the trailer. The description continues and says several members of the Guardians, Rocket and Groot were absent, they believe, jump out of a ship onto what looks like a larger alien planet. They're each wearing brightly colored suits, each one different: blue, green, red, orange, and yellow. They're obviously going on a mission of some sort, and it's here where Peter tries to talk to Gamora about their past. He asks if she might be willing to open herself up, and she says, "I don't think so, Quinn," in which he replies, "Quill, it's Quill." At which point, Mantis tells Peter that they're on an open channel and everyone can hear. It then shows Peter and the rest of the Guardians very embarrassed for Peter. The final parts of the trailer seem to be a bunch of scenes shown pretty quickly. It says that it shows the Guardians in what looks like them opening up a store. It shows the evil monster from the beginning of Guardians 2. It shows Peter and the team getting off on what looks like an Earth neighborhood. And at the end, it shows the group all walking in slow motion, Groot now much thicker and more muscular, no Rocket, and Gamora walking in the background. Now, before we break it all down, let's go over this other trailer description from comicbook.com. It's much shorter, but is a little bit different. It says, Guardians 3 footage sees the Guardians captured by Ravengers, and Nebula reveals that they have an appointment with Gamora. Peter Quill is caught all the way off guard. Peter reflects on their time together. "You were everything to me," he said. "I thought you were gone, but you're here, and I miss you." Gamora tells him that person was not her. We get our first look at Adam Warlock. We see a grown Groot fighting back to back with Quill. The High Evolutionary shows up. The Guardians float on a space planet. Gamora caps the trailer by calling Quill by the wrong name and turning him down. The Guardians joke on Quill for talking to her so intimately on an open communication line, and they've been listening all along. It ends with Mantis asking what we know about Rocket. A shot of a very young Rocket Raccoon takes the screen. Much of the trailer was set to "Do You Realize" by Flaming Lips. So the first thing that you have to know about this trailer obviously is what happened during Avengers Infinity War and what happened during Avengers Endgame. In Avengers Infinity War, Thanos killed the Gamora that loved Peter and that Peter loved. Then of course in Avengers Endgame, Thanos and Gamora and Nebula from a different timeline went into our Avengers' main timeline, in which Gamora then turned good, but then kind of ran off and did her own thing. Not before she managed to kick Quill in the nuts, of course, showing that she really was not the same Gamora that Peter knew. And the description of this trailer makes that very, very apparent. The Gamora that is now in our main timeline is not the old Gamora. The old Gamora is truly dead. But the new one seems to be in charge of the Ravengers now. And the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 post-credit scene teased us with a new group of Ravengers, Sylvester Stallone being one of them. So that's definitely going to be really, really cool to see. Now, it seems like for whatever reason, Gamora does decide to go with the Guardians of the Galaxy because it seems like she is with them the rest of the trailer. Perhaps she goes because of Nebula. The two of them did have a bonding moment in Avengers Endgame where Nebula says we eventually do become sisters. So perhaps it's Nebula and the desire for sisterhood that convinces Gamora to go with them. Now, the rest of the important parts of the trailer, though, seem to focus on the High Evolutionary and the story around him and Rocket Raccoon, who is one of his experiments. In the comics, the High Evolutionary started off by doing experiments on animals, trying to turn them to basically humanoid forms of themselves. Still animals, but functioning with human intellect, basically. Now, of course, people thought this was extremely weird, and the High Evolutionary ended up leaving to another planet, which he called Counter-Earth, where he planned to make it a paradise. It was an exact copy of Earth based on the other side of the sun, but it became corrupted. Now, in this trailer, they call this Half-World, which is basically Counter-Earth. And it's on Half-Earth that we see a glimpse of a young baby Rocket Raccoon in the flashbacks. Now, we already know, but in the movie, it will be revealed that Rocket Raccoon is one of the test subjects of the High Evolutionary. That is what the High Evolutionary does. He experiments on animals and turns them into somewhat humanoid forms. And Rocket Raccoon in previous films has even said, well, I didn't ask to get made. So this is really going to dive deep into the origin story of how Rocket Raccoon came to be who exactly he is. Now, of course, the other big thing in the trailer is the first look at Adam Warlock. And according to some descriptions and some leaked images that I have seen, Adam Warlock still has a place on his head for the Soul Stone. Adam Warlock is widely known for having the Soul Stone on his head. But of course, with Thanos destroying all of the Infinity Stones, people were wondering, well, what exactly is Adam Warlock going to look like? Will he have a stone on his head or not? And while it doesn't exactly look like a stone, you can definitely tell there is something there, perhaps meant to house the Soul Stone or an Infinity Stone in general to give him power. Now, based off of all of the trailer descriptions, they only show Adam Warlock for a brief time. But we do get a good look at the High Evolutionary, and we did get a great look at him at San Diego Comic-Con. And like I have been talking about on the channel for a long time, it is confirmed that Chukwudi Iwuji will be playing the High Evolutionary. And that's it for the teaser. Remember, it's just a teaser, not a full-on trailer, but it still seems like they showed a lot. Now, remember, the Ant-Man trailer is probably first, followed up by the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 trailer, but the good news is that it is done. So, in the meantime, while we wait, let me know what you think about this footage description in the comments down below, and what would you like to see from Guardians 3. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you can stay up to date on all things MCU. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.